Grazie a lei. Con noi anche il padre Patrick Kelly, professore associato di teologia della Seattle University, come ha già detto Sua Eminenza. Lui parlerà in inglese e ci dà la versione teologica del documento dopo l'intervento della dottoressa Stelitano. Padre Kelly.
Buongiorno. So I was asked to talk about how the document can help the church. And we all might remember that Pope Francis, in the general congregation to elect a new pope, recalled the passage from Revelation where Jesus said, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." But he had a unique sort of way of interpreting that passage. He said that he imagined Jesus standing inside the church, at the door of the church, and knocking and wanting to get outside into the world, where the people lived and experienced all of the struggles of their lives and the joys and the hopes of their lives. And I think in this document, the church is doing that, is paying attention to and taking seriously the experiences that people are having participating in sport and asking questions about their effect on the human person. The document also helps the church to become aware of another dimension of its cultural and theological heritage, which I think we might say has been overlooked in recent history. I think it's important to note that with respect to participation in play and sport, it's lay people who are the principal actors. They were the ones who played the games and sports in the medieval period. On the feast days, they were the students who played sports in the humanist schools of the Renaissance and the early Jesuit schools and later Catholic schools. And today, they are the players and coaches in contemporary context. Young people in particular, are interested and involved in sport. And so I think it's appropriate that a document such as this comes from this Dicastery, which has it as its focus, the laity. But lay people are also embodying certain theological sensibilities when they engage in this play and sport. As the document points out, in contrast to the way the history of sport in the West is often written, Christians traditionally have emphasized the goodness of the material world. The controversies with the Gnostics and the Manichaeans were a big part of that. And that the person is a unity of body, soul, and spirit is the way St. Paul put it. The humanist Montaigne, in an essay on education, wrote, "We're not raising a soul, we're not raising a body, we're raising a person. We must not split him into two." And that was the reason that he gave for incorporating play and sport in the school day. The document also points out that Thomas Aquinas had asked in his Summa, can there be a virtue about games? And he answered, yes. That's because for him, virtue is associated with moderation. So working or studying all the time would be excessive. And a fully human life needs time for play and recreation as well. Thomas was the main influence on late medieval preaching about this topic, as well as on the humanists when they started their schools, and later Catholics who incorporated play and sport in the schools. For Thomas, play is not the pause that refreshes, as we hear at the Coca-Cola philosophy, so that we can get back to work and be more productive, but rather, he says, play is done for its own sake. And enjoyment in play is directed toward the end or the recreation of the human person. I think this document continues this heritage with the recognition of the playful, ludic character of sport, and that sport needs to serve the human person in his or her integral development. Because sport can do this, it's important, of course, that all who wish to participate are able to do so. And so I was happy to see that the document mentions the importance of providing opportunities for children who are living in poverty or who are displaced or children with disabilities. In some parts of the world, girls and women are not able to participate in sport. So by reminding us of play and sport as a dimension of our cultural and theological heritage, the document provides principles for schools, Catholic youth organization, dioceses, and bishop conferences With respect to youth, it reminds us that play is done because it's enjoyable. They do it for its own sake, but it also can draw out the fullness of the person. No, that's what the word education comes from in Latin, to draw out. In this way, sport can become what St. John Paul II called gymnastics of the body and spirit. The fullness of a person includes the awareness that they're part of a community, which they learn by playing on teams, and are open to encounter and dialogue with others from different races, cultures, religious traditions than themselves. In this way, sport can become a part of the building of a culture of encounter and the unity of the human family.
Thank you very much. Grazie, Padre Kelly.
And look for the.
And I think, by the way, Carol, so there's the new issue of the journal, academic journal, U.S. Catholic Historian, is devoted entirely to athletics. And I have a chapter in that book and right from the very start of Catholic schools, so it goes back way to the end of the 18th century, but in the 19th century too, there are this play and sport is included in the activities. I was mentioning the role of the lay people because I think it's somewhat distinctive that in a sense we could say that lay people in this domain were the carriers of the tradition. They were embodying the tradition in terms of the extent of their participation. Now they were formed by priests and religious, in the theological understandings in terms of the material goodness of the material world, the body, importance of play. But in a sense, they're the ones who are embodying, carrying this tradition.
Of course, I doubt that too many priests would be actually involved in playing. It's usually lay people who are more involved in promoting sport within parish in the context, in the religious context.
Yeah.
I think, too, there are ways of understanding the human being and experiencing ourselves that have been influenced by, if we're talking especially maybe in the West, influenced by certain, philosophical traditions. And one of them would be that I think is still present in sport is a mechanistic way of understanding and experiencing the body. So the body as machine, which is something that if a formation of a young person takes place in that sort of context, it really undermines the humanity, especially the dimension of feeling, and it can have impacts in a young person's ability, for example, to enter into intimate relationship with a person, which is one of the tasks of growing into adulthood. Like Santiago was saying, the document doesn't pretend to tell people in different parts of the world with very different maybe situations exactly what to do, but provides principles, and the dignity of the human person being a key one here, and the well-being of the person. We could say Jesus wants the fullness of life, which would be the whole of one's life, and so we need to attend to how sport impacts the person long term. Can they have a family? Can they still relate to their children later on in their years? And I think one way to think about this is to use a term from Ignatius of Loyola. It has to do with freedom, our interior freedom. If there's an issue in sport having to do with the body, can we really put the well-being and the dignity of the human person first? Or is there something else that's first? Glory or money, the excitement of the game. So it's kind of it's an opportunity for people to reflect on what are our priorities.